There was a time in Arabia when the great Bedouin tribes still wandered the deserts and the hounds ran free. Two destinies of freedom linked forever. Today, so many of those old traditions have been lost in these gentle sands. Ghosts of a hound that ran like the wind through the deserts that once danced with life and magic, and whispers of one of the great cultures of the world. These are desert creatures of Arabia, ancients who still walk with their ancestors. Wild and romantic, the men of the deserts marched through the sands and brought with them their most treasured possessions, the Saluki hounds, heirs to one of the most ancient breeds in the world, a hound adapted to the desert. But how did this come about? How did this lithe runner glide into a special relationship with the world of Islam like no other dog? 13 centuries ago, the laws of Islam were forged into timelessness by these desert dwellers. In the teachings as laid down by the Hadith, there is reference to how you can use animals for the hunt and how you may not. It is written and obeyed. And although this law could apply to any hunting dog, among the Arabs, one single breed has been chosen. A hound that is adapted to running like the wind. A hound that is accepted in the Muslim world. We pick up our story in the stark deserts of the Middle East, where the desert Bedouin are most at home. And in amongst this rich tapestry of life, alongside the nomads, there are always the hounds, desert Salukis that have been hunting comrades in arms for centuries. In a distant desert in southern Jordan, a lone Bedouin camp is about to get a visitor. Mohammed bin Mutlaq is on a quest. He has heard of a new puppy, and he has come to see for himself whether this pup is as special as the new owners claim, and to add his wisdom to the story of Salukis, and in particular, Warda, the rose. Mohammed is an elder of the Hawitat tribe and seems to be a keeper of the knowledge about Salukis.
I have raised hounds for a long time, since before my 7th or 8th grandfather. We have done this because we are desert nomads who live in the wild land where there is still game, wild and untamed. In the past, we hunted gazelles and rabbits with the hounds. So we used to use the Salukis for game hunting. We still do. In the beginning, there is no guns, so we trained the hounds to hunt for us.
ونتقرنص فيهن ندور الغزلان وندور الارانب ونذبح يا عندما تنقز الارنب والسلق معك.
Muhammad clearly comes from a long bloodline of Saluki-owning Bedouin, the type of men that see running hounds in their dreams.
النقاز كمان يقول بسم الله الله.
Yes, when I sleep, I dream of the game we fail to hunt or catch. It is normal for human to dream about these things.
In this remote place, and under the gaze of the stars and Bedouin hospitality, the men assemble to listen to Muhammad as he talks about the desert, the winds, and hunting with hounds. Tomorrow he will watch Warda as she runs. Although at just 11 weeks of age, it will be hard to tell a lot about her potential. And besides being interested in the tradition and purity of these hounds, Muhammad is also the translator of the past, telling his tales of the very beginning. A 150,000 years ago, early man sat alone at night and stared into the flames for solace. Wolf bones were scattered around that fire. The origins of the first domesticated dog are unclear. But one theory is that our Paleolithic ancestors stumbled across wolf pups in a den and took them back to camp, possibly just to fatten up and eat. But they slowly crept into our hearts as our view of them softened. Another contrasting theory is that early wolves approached us first, as scavengers around our fires, slowly adopting us and our ways. Slowly we adapted to having them around too. In some ways, much as we chose the dog chose us. Although archaeological remains of a wolf dog from over 12,000 years ago were found in Mesopotamia, our first coexistence may go back as far as 30,000 years. In prehistoric times, we were used to the mysterious glimpses of wolves as we shared the same hunting range and prey. In the Middle East, humans likely came across the Arabian wolf. The wolf-dog mixes that came about were smaller and tamer. We started to recognize the benefits of breeding a companion, selecting for color and for speed, characteristics that would distinguish ours from those that would threaten our sheep and goat herds. And our skill as breeders grew over the millennia. A little over 1,000 miles across the desert from Muhammad, a completely different world exists. What looks like a desert fortress is in fact a breeding center for Salukis. The Arabian Saluki Center in Abu Dhabi is well financed and can afford the very best. Here the director, Hamad Al Ghanem, a fourth-generation Saluki breeder, takes his job very seriously. He is also determined that the Saluki must be kept pure. Mixing will dilute the balance of what makes the ultimate Saluki: the looks, temperament, intelligence, endurance, and hunting instincts. And here there is also a favorite puppy, Toshan, a thoroughbred of just 11 months, but his hunting training has already started. He's being groomed to shine. The training is about the hunt. The hunt is about the hare. Young dogs are paired with older dogs to learn from. But these are dogs of the desert wind, and they need the space to really run. Out here, they come face to face with the change that is happening all around them. Never as abundant as the African wildlife, the animals here have all but disappeared. As a result, throughout much of the Arab world, hunting has now been banned. The herds of oryx and gazelle, well adapted to the sun-baked sands, have gone. High-powered rifles and 4x4 vehicles changed everything, and slowly the fragile desert has become more and more empty. Their world is different now, but with or without the prospect of hunting, this ex-army captain is determined to keep breeding these beautiful dogs of the desert. Hamad uses the surrounding scrubland that the hounds will have to get used to for the next step of their training. He uses captive hares out here to prepare his hounds for the command to release its prey. A command that must go against every instinct of the dog. But that is what it has been trained to do. Even though this is a training exercise, Hamad must be careful. Hunting is restricted here. In some parts of Arabia and Africa, the elite still hunt with salukis, often as a private affair done behind closed doors on private ranches and palace grounds. There is an ancient relationship between these desert men, their desert hounds, and the falcon. The falcon is another accepted creature according to the traditions of Islam. Hamad meets up with a friend of his, a falconer, for another phase of training. Traditionally, the falcon was used in two ways. On release, the bird soars and searches, and if the prey is spotted, it dives. By so doing, it indicates where the hare or gazelle is hiding. It is then that the hounds are let loose. At other times, the hounds course and flush birds. The falcon is dispatched to quickly drop the prey. These things excite Ahmad as a scholar of all things Saluki. And to further delve into the culture of these dogs, he points us in the direction of Egypt over 4,000 years ago. During the Old Kingdom, the Great Pyramids were being constructed and painted with symbols that catalogued life of that time. In these paintings, kings had themselves painted as statuesque young men, no matter what age they were, and they looked towards the gods. And always somewhere in these friezes were images of the hounds. In Egypt around this time, a pointed-eared dog called a tessem was depicted. Around 2000 BC, images of a Saluki-like hound started to replace the tessem in Egyptian art. And even back then, there are signs of the revered bond with these beautiful hounds. Some of these hounds even have names carved below them, like Ebony, and in one case, Brave One. That bond goes even further. Anubis, caretaker of the dead on the journey from this world to the next. Some researchers feel it was a jackal, others say a dog and jackal mix. But so highly regarded was this ancient and deep-rooted relationship with the canid that Anubis was entrusted with a royal soul. He watched over the ritual of the great balance, where the heart and soul were weighed, to determine if the person was pure and honest and free of sin. Achieve the balance, and the spirit was passed on to the afterlife. Fail, and your heart was thrown to the beast Amit, and forever lost. In the Pharaoh's day, we believed that we could tame the wind and get to ride on its breath. Around this time, it seems they also found fascination in another animal and watched their gait with enormous admiration. They tamed cheetahs for their magic and their speed. On the run, they look like the fast sighthounds. The English greyhound runs in much the same way. Short, fast bursts stretching each stride, often with all 4 feet in the air at a time, a characteristic of all sighthounds on the run. Their lungs fill with oxygen, pushing out their deep chests, pumping blood, converting all they can into energy as some of the most efficient speed machines nature can produce. But cheetahs are more difficult to acquire and train for the hunt, and nearly impossible to control from eating the prey they have caught. The hounds just made more congenial companions and economic sense. Another intriguing parallel is the African wild dog. A wild dog on the run can keep going for much longer than a cheetah or a greyhound, running at up to 30 miles per hour. The style of hunting is also much closer to that of a Saluki, even though they are not directly related. Perhaps our ancestors simply used nature for inspiration and bred from the strengths already there. Throughout time, we have become more familiar with dogs, and that familiarity led to inspiration. In ancient Egyptian times, there were at least 5 distinct breeds. Today, breeders show more than 300 different breeds of dog. Squat-nosed, tall, small, fat, thin, pampered, sophisticated, short. Dogs bred for petting, for protection, for herding, for handling, for showing, for reflecting who we are. We have tried to speed up time and evolution, it seems, where we can breed a new strain in just a few generations. It appears that the origin of the Saluki's special status in Islam comes from the Prophet Muhammad some 1400 years ago. Stray or pariah dogs are still the scourge of many a town and village today, running wild and scavenging rubbish. But in the ancient city of Medina, this was an even greater problem than today. Strays were overrunning the place and spreading disease. The Prophet Muhammad ruled that all dogs should be killed, but realized that even dogs were creations of Allah. To complicate matters, like many of his day, it is said that he also kept hounds for hunting. So he ruled that pure breeds, sent down by Allah, were acceptable. But he said the black dog is the devil, and especially those with the sign of Satan. Light patches over the eyes were condemned, and in the 7th century, killed in countless numbers. But some say that he meant these black dogs were more ferocious, and to some hunters, that's the interpretation they are sticking to. And the great Bedouin spirit that will not be suppressed unveils itself as the hunts continue, sometimes legally, sometimes in defiance of the law. For the hunters of Syria, there is an exuberant pride in owning a hound that performs well. Here, the hounds look different again. Ears are cropped to save them getting ripped in the bush, or by flying front legs as they reach for extra speed, or just because it is always done. Once the quarry is sighted, the hunt is on. The hounds are let loose and the excitement leaps to full volume, racing at up to 30 miles an hour. And 9th century Arabic poem reads, "Like an arrow it was sent, tearing away from his own skin, lightning like a cloud." But it is in endurance that these hounds are king. Another poem from this time says, "And all the good things they come from him, all the assistance they have come from him. His master is like a slave to him." Sometimes things go wrong. It is rare. These are valuable hounds, and behind tough exteriors, compassionate owners. Hounds that don't perform are simply let go. Injured hounds are sometimes put down with reverence. But when the hunt is over and the memories relived, the successes are celebrated. And now, as in the past, man's spirits soar with the hunt. Muhammad believes you can see what makes up a good Saluki if you know what to look for. And he agrees it is never the color. It is in 4 or 5 key features. According to the local wisdom, it is the length of a dog and a flexible spine that generates speed. The spread of the hips. 4 fingers must fit just precisely within them. A tail that wraps around between the legs, back to the spine. Its proportions. Back legs generate power, front for reach. A sighthound needs both good ears and eyes, but it is about balance, the run and reach and stamina. How well will it use its long, deep chest on the hunt? That is what makes the ideal Saluki. Muhammad and his friends are combing the desert for tracks. It is a rare event. The puppies are out today. Any rise in interest, and the hounds leap to the game. And although it is hard not to get caught up in the excitement of the flying dogs and animated men, this is not about the hunt today. It is about watching Warda. Guarded eyes watch for subtle signs. Often small rodents are used for training, if they can be found. Warda is not for giving up. In a place where there is no escape from the chilling desert wind that suddenly springs up, the Bedouin have found their own comforts. Some sweet tea and a camel hair coat. And at this moment, perhaps with a subtle nod from Muhammad that Warda is accepted, she accepts the warmth unquestioningly, a diminutive queen of this colorful desert. The growth of this specialized breed of dog surged in the 7th century with the spread of Islam. Its messengers traveled far and wide, heading west into North Africa with their hounds, and gradually over the next 700 years, they spread their influence to India, the Far East, and down the Swahili coast of Africa, and onwards towards the setting sun and North Africa's Morocco and Algeria, and conquests. The expansion went on. When they got to Morocco, the Arabs found resistance from the great Berber tribes until at least the early 8th century. But the influence of the religion eventually caught on and ingrained itself into their culture. And today, the hunt is no less traditional or ritualized than those in the deserts, and they fight to keep those traditions alive. Here the hounds are slightly heavier set than the Salukis of the deserts. Here they are called Salugis, technically a different breed according to Western breeders, but the differences are subtle. With a good mixture of reverence and practical healing, they perform a ritual before taking their hounds out into the field to hunt. Henna is rubbed onto the feet of the hounds to protect them against the sharp desert stones. But while the application is partly medicinal, it is also deeply symbolic. Henna is used throughout the Muslim world with great significance. On a bride's hands before a wedding, for example, and used on their hounds in many countries from Syria to Morocco. One hound is decorated with a hand of Fatima, an important figure in this culture and deeply symbolic of good luck for the hunt. And as the men prepare, there is an air of anticipation throughout the villages. The hunt is an important moment. Men are united by an appreciation for the hound, an appreciation of its speed, the flight, the reach, the chase. A poem in motion. El Hor, the noble one. Abu Nawaz wrote, "When the fox appeared at the foot of the mountain, I summoned my dog and he rose like a true warrior." Abu Nawaz continues, "A dog of brave heart and admirable nature, virtuous and trained to perfection." But as much as this is a functional hunt to seek out the sheep killer, the same as 13 centuries ago, it is also for sport. Even here in Africa, a different continent thousands of miles away from the Arabian deserts, the same rituals apply. The practical hunters here also know their hounds. Salugi pups are also scrutinized for the qualities they find important. The hunt is relived 1,000 times, fortified by sweet tea and different perspectives of the hunt. Which hound was faster? Which scaled the stone wall in a leap? Which was the better hound? In these villages, an old hound is respected and buried after death. Such special treatment was not unknown in ancient times. Skeletal remains from a place called Tel Brak in Syria of 4,000 years ago suggest that our ancestors may have buried a special sighthound, virtually identical in bone structure to those of today. Accepted among all classes in this world now, the hounds, Salugis just like the Salukis of Arabia, are given the special privilege of going to the table of the Muslim. They listen to the old men's tall tales with half an ear and stare out to the next hunt. But in many areas, that time may have come to its end. Because of the diminishing wildlife and limited opportunities to hunt, some wealthy breeders have been adding a little greyhound to the mix. These dogs have a slight edge on speed, but can only manage one chase on a day. Once again, it threatens the breed. But these are not the sort of people to give up easily. Traditions die hard. After all, these are the Bedouin. In Wadi Rum, southern Jordan, a breakthrough conservation initiative has at last found its feet. After 80 years of extinction, the Arabian oryx has returned. It is a start of turning back the clock, restocking this vast desert from the ground up. If the armed hunters can be kept out, this bold conservation attempt can extend to the gazelle, the Hubara bustard, and even the desert hare. Healthy deserts are the best hope for the people trying to preserve their culture and their hounds. But in truth, if the survival of the hounds relies only on their being able to hunt, it is over. Hamad, though, sees the future. He sees registration and regulation of the breed in Arabia and wider acceptance around the world. Toshan may never hunt in the wild, but his master does find a nostalgic joy in simply knowing that Salukis exist and that he has had a lot to do with that. As he looks back, his eyes mist up, perhaps with the pride of keeping up a tradition of an Arab legacy. But still the wind will blow here, and the tracks may disappear. And slowly, as the Saluki comes under threat throughout its traditional range, its long-term survival as a breed may depend more on its success in the western show rings, no longer as an awesome hunter coursing through the dunes, but as a beauty queen, and that may well be its salvation. Because today, everything is changing. The dignified desert nomads live mostly in towns now. Muhammad is one of those. When he leaves the desert and his evaluation of Warda, he returns to his cinder block house in Wadi Rum, like almost all of these desert nomads today. Here, tourists flood the valley, coming for rock climbing or to stand in wonder of the place where Laurence once stood. The Bedouin sell camel rides and pictures of themselves with their far-looking, weathered faces, and gently adapt to a new economy. Old Muhammad lives a dual life now, one half with his eyes fixed on the horizon, waiting for the return of his hounds. Hounds he has now, and those he has known before in his life. And the other half is a life spent in memory of those days. A Bedouin without a desert, and a hound without a hunt. After much thought, he has decided to go back and pronounce Warda a gem, but of course not in as many words. Too strong an admiration, and the tradition here would dictate that the owners make a gift of the pup to him. But at least now, though, he has a new hound to look forward to visiting as he walks between these two lives, and plays his own role in ensuring the future of a hound whose eyes shine with an ancient knowledge, passed down through its direct bloodline. The hounds that run with the wind.